I abide in a wee town called Preston Pans that's only about 8 or 9 miles away from Edinburgh. I grew up there when I was wee, and I also, when I was a teenager, as being said, came here when I was a teenager. I just used to bike just across the way. Fascinating stuff, and for me, growing up, guising was always a really important part of my memory of my childhood. And one of the most important things I remember is the smell of turnips. As you make your Taibhsear lantern, and all the plasters that you needed on your fingers after blood was everywhere. It seemed to kind of fit in with the... And so I do that now with my bairns, my youngest ones. And, but I'm going to give you a real secret, a family secret. When we make our Taibhsear lanterns now, we cheat a wee bit. We microwave them a little. But don't tell anyone. And of course, we make these beautiful Taibhsear lanterns, and we go out guising. And my daughter, Sky, who's 6 now, has become culturally aware that we're kind of almost the only people who do this. She walks into the supermarkets and she sees mountains of pumpkins. And she asked me, why don't we do the pumpkins, Dad? And I just said, they don't know any better. And then we went guising, and we go guising every Samhain. We are the guisers of Preston Pans. Please put money or sweets in our hands. We'll give you a song or a poem too. Then we'll sing. It's the family. Some people don't answer the door after the first time, as you can kind of begin to understand. And this year we came to a house where there was a pumpkin outside, so we knew that they would be welcoming. But my daughter Sky, Dad, they have a pumpkin. Tell them. Speak to them. And of course, that was a powerful moment for her, because I was thinking that just as she grows up, to become the... I mean, that's a very simple thing, the Taibhsear lantern as opposed to the pumpkin. But for me, encapsulated kind of what's happening. And I'm a storyteller, and I'm in schools regularly. I'm doing story projects in schools almost all the time, and I'm in a school regularly at this time, just now. And I kind of asked the kids, hands up if you go guising. And I was met with a fairly blank, most of the classes just looked at what's he talking about, especially the younger ones. And then I rephrased my question, and I said, hands up if you go trick-or-treating. And then there was a kind of forest of hands that went up. They just didn't recognise the word guising and the concept of it, which I felt was really sad. And then I asked them, do you know why you go trick-or-treating? What's the reason for it? And almost universally, it was to get sweets and money. Well, fair enough. There is that element to it. When you see my children coming back with their buckets, and then we have to suffer for the next 2 weeks as their sugar rush continues. But of course, there's far more to it than that, and the whole kind of concept, I think, is in danger of being lost. And listening to the fascinating lecture, just the importance of it, because for me, Samhain, Halloween is that time when the darkness comes, when you do start to close in as a community. It's like a Cayley season, when you sit around the fire and you tell stories, and you celebrate the people who you're with, because all the activity and the buzz of summer is starting to die away. And traditionally, of course, people were literally in the darkness. And so, in exploring that with the children in schools, just to recognise that and point outside it's dark and it's miserable, that trick-or-treating or guising is a tradition that recognises something that we all experience, which is being on that threshold of change and the way you feel differently about it. And it's not just about knocking on people's doors to get sweets and money, although that can be kind of part of it. And working quite often in working class communities that are perhaps in a more urban environment to the ones that we've been hearing about, I think quite often the disconnect that many of our young people experience from nature is a major and significant issue that we have to address. And this kind of celebration, this kind of coming together, this social drama is really part of it. And I reflected on that a wee while back, and so with a remarkable man called Stan Reeves, who some of you I'm sure know, we created the Preston Plans Mummers a few years ago, and we brought an old play, and for me it's also about language as well, because I hail from a wee tune where you can get a right big spiel in Scots and you'll be sitting on your bahookies and half you wouldn't be kenning what I'm talking about at all. And so it's a space also to celebrate the language of the community as well as the connections of it. And the Galoshan play in Scots is where the Dark Knight has a sword fight with Galoshians dressed, and the Galoshan dies. But then the Galoshan is eventually brought to life by a kind of mad, crazy doctor, perfectly enacted by Stan Reeves. He wasn't actually acting. And of course it's about the cycle of death, and resurrection, the seasons, something we all experience in our own personal life as well. Very powerful that after an ending there are beginnings. And all of that sort of thing incorporated in the play. And it allows the children also to make their own masks, to represent themselves in the way that they want to represent themselves. And we took it to the schools. And there's a Facebook page, you can see the photographs. It was a bit like a pantomime in some ways, but I absolutely loved it. And you kind of got the message. And the following year, because of my domestic circumstances, I just didn't have the time to do it again. But I was in my local fish and chip shop, as you are often in the past. And I was waiting for my fish to get cooked. And these two young lads came up and went, "You're the storyteller, aren't you? And you're going to do that thing like you did last year. Ken, that thing where what was his Galoshan was his sheep got kicked in by Black Knight, and it was all about the changes of the seasons, and I got to be a stag." The person doing the fish and chips. For me, it was a wonderful moment. And it shows that tradition can be reseeded, just as a land can be reforested. And I think that's what we need to do, that we need to find ways to do it. And being a storyteller, I have a huge privilege because I'm in the schools and I meet so many wonderful kids, many who are struggling in life. And those who've ever seen me tell stories would know that as I tell stories in the past, I used to always have Hamish with me. Now Hamish was a stick that was found by my oldest daughter in a wood. I think he came from a cherry tree, I'm not quite sure. Hamish just seemed a good name for her. He became really famous. I mean, one of the first times I walked into the school with a school, I'll not name, but had very big problems. With kind of behaviour and everything, and I walked in with Hamish and I heard a wee boy who was hiding underneath the table saying, "We're not allowed sticks in this school, mister." And I was sort of, he's not any stick, he's Hamish. He did give me a bit of a funny look. But very quickly he became one of the lads in that school who'd want to hold Hamish. Who'd want to feel the power of his connection. Because Hamish had a story. And after many years of storytelling, suddenly Hamish vanished. I don't know what happened to him. He was there 1 minute and then he was gone. And I think what happened is that someone took him. Someone wanted him as an amulet. Someone recognised the power of this stick that had been part of the tree. And I had to tell the kids, they were really upset, they're very upset. And a few days later, a dad came up to me in school and said, "Excuse me, are you the storyteller?" "Yeah." And someone said, like, I'm always sending riddles home and things like that. I'm sick of those riddles. He says, "Could you tell me why my two boys are dragging me through the wood looking for someone called Hamish?" "Who's Hamish?" So I had to explain, and what I hadn't realised was that the children proactively, without me asking them, started to search for him. They started to search for him in the most obvious place, the wood. And one boy, it's interesting, it was mostly boys, but one boy came up. Now this is not him, well, this is not the original Hamish. The original, but he came up with this. He goes, "Tim, I know it's not Hamish, but when I was looking for Hamish, I came across this stick, and it reminded me of the story that you told us in the class. And I thought it would be a nice thing to bring him from the wood and give him a home in the classroom." And very briefly, the story I told in the class was the story of a rowan tree in a wood. And the wood was a beautiful lush wood, but this rowan tree, the seed of the rowan tree fell on a rocky outcrop, and there wasn't much soil. And there was beech trees growing all around. So when the rowan tree started to grow, it couldn't grow as magnificently tall and solid as these very, very proud beech trees, who were lucky enough to have been seeded on rich soil. And instead the rowan tree had to grow in a twisted manner, because these beautiful beech trees, beautiful as they were, the matriarchs of the forest, had a canopy that meant that the sunlight was blocked from most other trees. And so this rowan tree had to twist this way and then twist that way in an attempt to try and get the little sunshine that was left. And the beech trees would look down on the rowan tree and they would sneer at the rowan tree. And I said, "Look at you, you're so small, you're not a proud tree like we are, and you're all twisted. You're all twisted, not straight and beautiful like us." And the little rowan tree started to think he wasn't a proper tree, but his limbs, because they were twisted, somehow made him less valued or less a proper tree. Until one day a woman came into the wood who knew all about trees and plants and spoke to the trees and spoke to the plants. When she came to the beech trees, she extolled how fantastic they were and how the nuts were some of the first things that the Greeks used to eat. Beech trees still stood proud of pride as they listened to the accolade. And then the woman went up to the rowan tree and she stood and she studied it. And the rowan tree thought, I know, I'm not a proper tree. I'm small and I'm twisted. They spoil the wood. I wish I could be a tree like them, but I can't. I'm a rowan. I've got very little sunlight, and I'm seated on this rock. I wish I wasn't here. But when the woman opened her mouth and spoke to the rowan tree, she said, "Here is the most magnificent tree. No other tree, especially these beech trees, could possibly grow in this little rocky outcrop. How brave and courageous is this tree. The berries come from the blood of an eagle. The wood protects you from evil spirits and witchcraft. And look how magnificently twisted it is. It shows it has had a struggle in life, but has managed to survive. And that was a story that I told in the school to help a couple of kids who were struggling with their self-esteem. But the young lad picked up this and he said, I think he needs us to be with him so he knows his value. But I don't think it's a rowan tree. I don't think it's probably a sycamore, I suspect. And it looks like he's going through hard times. So the kids are discovering how best to bandage the stick. And I said to the kids, well, you know what? If you have, like the original Hamish, we called him Hamish Do, Black Hamish. And then the next week, another child brought in another stick. Because he decided that Hamish Do needed some company. From a birch, I think. And it was decided this was a female and this was a male. But like humans, gender can be very flexible. And very quickly, it evolved that going into the wood to find the stick became a kind of tradition for these classes, and it still is. And what I've said to the children is when you go into wood, find a stick that you feel connected to. The story for this stick really connected to that boy. His story was similar. And when you find a stick, use it to help you. You can put it in your bedroom, some of them bring them to school now. And that school that doesn't allow sticks do allow sticks now. As long as you use them appropriately. And when you have your stick, see if you can find the parent tree. And when you find the parent tree, go and speak to the parent tree as often as you can. Let them know how their offspring is getting on. Go in the winter time and notice in the winter time how the leaves perhaps are falling off and how they survive the winter, what grows around them, what other trees are there. You don't necessarily have to learn about it in the book, just decide what you want to notice. And then go in the spring and see how your tree changes in the spring. Is it the first to get green leaves or does it wait? What do the green leaves look like? Is the tree going to give you some green leaves? What fruits, what flowers will grow on your tree? And then in the autumn, when the dark time comes, and you see the tree beginning to wilt from its leaves falling off and change, and the winter is on its way, that's your tree telling you it's time for you to dress up. It's time for you to go guising, not trick-or-treating. For you to go guising, to dress up, to acknowledge that all life has cycles. And as the light times are turning into the dark times, hold your stick when you go guising and dress up in whatever you want to do, in your mask or whatever. Make up your own Galoshan play. Decide who the mad doctor is. It could be your mum. And act it out. And when it's dark, sometimes switch off the light. Be with your connection to nature and tell a story. P7s are normally quite cynical. But I'm flying to Sweden for a weekend to see someone special on Friday. And the P7s came up to me at a big gaggle and said, Tim, we know you're flying away at the weekend, because you told us. Can we look after Hamish Do while you're away? And put him in the classroom. And of course you will, as long as you look after him. And they researched a bit about sycamore tree and the breed that it should be sycamore. That's me just sharing a perspective from a storyteller It wasn't really planned. It wasn't something that I kind of, because Hamish, the loss of him, was maybe for me a bit of a liminal space, because he wasn't there anymore. But I think the real message of that is, if someone's not physically with you, they're with you in spirit. And that is the ultimate message of the season. Thank you.